Keeping the Good Samaritan story in mind, who are our neighbors? Okay, guys, I did an extensive study on this topic. Okay, so we have a YouTube video on it. But this, I think, is going to be the most helpful way to examine it. So let's go to John Frame. Because the idea everyone is my neighbor, I don't think is what Jesus is trying to teach here. Okay? See, the reason he brings it up is in Exodus 20:16, it says, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor." Okay? That's an interesting one. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Okay? And so he begins to talk about this idea of who is my neighbor, which is what Zimmy is asking about. It's a really good question. Okay? Let's go further down. Okay, listen. It does appear that the Bible passages listed above, which justify deception in certain cases, because listen to this, especially when they seek innocent life, whether or not we speak of these intrusions, we should recall that in the 9th commandment, the requirement to tell the truth is conditioned on a relationship, that of neighbor. Okay? In other passages too, we are forbidden to lie because of a relationship. In Ephesians 4:25, I have questioned whether a neighborly relationship exists between a believer and someone who seeks to murder. So this is what Frame brings up. Okay? He's like, look, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? Got you? Right? And then the Good Samaritan. Jesus brings up the situation of the Good Samaritan and says which one was a neighbor to this man. Right? And we often conclude from that passage, everyone's our neighbor. Okay? God is requiring us to see everybody in a neighborly relationship. And what Frame is saying is, I don't think that's the case, right? At least I doubt that those who misled others in the 16 passages mentioned earlier were in neighborly relationship with their opponents. Certainly those who deceived in those passages didn't think so, and I think Scripture concurs in their judgment. So we have no obligation to tell the truth to people who, for example, seek innocent life. Think of your typical World War II dilemma. You're hiding Jews in your basement. The Gestapo come and knock on your door. Are you hiding Jews in your basement? You know, the question is, if you tell them yes, you are complicit in helping them take an innocent life. If you tell them no, you are lying. The idea is you're stuck on the horns of a moral dilemma. And what Frame says is, no, you are not under obligation to tell the truth in that situation. Okay? In many volumes and essays on ethics, authors refer to perhaps the most famous of all ethical dilemmas. Okay, there you go. World War II, a Christian is sheltering Jews in his home. There you go, perfect. He brings it up. Okay? So, what he essentially says is there's a condition of a neighborly relationship. That's what he talks about. And let's just look this up real quick. Luke 10:25 to 37. And let's ask ourselves, really, what is Jesus teaching here? And behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, What is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live. But he desired to justify himself and said to Jesus, Who is my neighbor? Here you go. Jesus replied, and he tells him a parable. Okay? A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? And he said, The one who showed him mercy. Jesus said, You go and do likewise. Okay? So that's the answer right there. What is Jesus teaching here? Is he teaching everyone is your neighbor? I don't think he's teaching everyone is your neighbor. I don't think that's actually his teaching here. I think what he is teaching, and if we can go to frame here, right here, we must give some attention to the term neighbor. Is everybody a neighbor? If so, then the commandment would forbid us to mislead anybody in order to hurt that person. But Scripture does not teach that everybody is our neighbor. Do you hear that? Frame says Scripture does not teach everybody is our neighbor. Certainly the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10:25-37 greatly expanded the Jews' concept of a neighbor. They wanted to construe it very narrowly, at least to exclude Gentiles so as to limit their own responsibility. But Jesus taught that the chief question is not, who is my neighbor? Remember, that's what the guy asked. Well, who's my neighbor? Jesus is not teaching everybody. Everybody's your neighbor, of course. That's not what he's teaching. That's often how we interpret the parable of the Good Samaritan, but that's not what Jesus is teaching. Instead, Jesus is teaching the question is, to whom will I be a neighbor? That's the question. Who can I actually go out towards and be neighborly towards? Cal Magic, Pharisees weren't Jesus' neighbor. Exactly right. The Pharisees were not Jesus' neighbor. And Jesus had the harshest words for the Pharisees because they did not actually open the door to people coming into the kingdom of God. So the question is not, who is my neighbor? The question is, to whom will I be a neighbor? And he answered the latter question by saying that we should be neighbors to anyone we find to be in need. That's the question. We should be neighbors to anyone we find to be in need. That's what we're looking to do. So, keeping the parable in mind, Jesus is not teaching every single person's your neighbor. I mean, this is self-evidently not true, right? Are terrorists who are seeking to take the lives of innocent people our neighbor in this sense? No, of course not, right? They're enemies of God. Now, we pray for our enemies. We love our enemies in the same way that God loved us even while we were his enemies. All of that is still true. But let's not try to mix up categories and terms and pretend that people who are actively trying to take the innocent lives of others are our neighbors. That's not at all what the scriptures are teaching. Okay? We need to have a good dose of discernment when it comes to all of this stuff as well. And so that's the idea. It's a fantastic question, Zimina. I'm glad you brought it up because it's not at all a straightforward issue to delineate. But once you understand that Jesus is saying we should be neighbors to everyone we find in need, then we recognize, oh, neighbor doesn't mean racial boundaries or anything like that. It's not based upon that. It's based upon those that we find to be in need. I'll just read this last paragraph from him. Even that parable does not universalize the concept of neighbor. Not everyone we meet on the road is a person in need of care. Some may be thieves, some may be murderers. They are our enemies. In chapter 19, I discussed a form of love that is due even to our enemies, but I also emphasized that love of enemies is not incompatible with the desire to bring God's judgment upon them. And we have seen in other chapters that such love is not incompatible with self-defense, punishment, or just war. Okay? These are very important ideas, guys, because there is a stereotypical perspective that Christians are to just be pacifists, let themselves get beat up, right? Be doormats that people can walk all over. And that's not the case. And if you look at Jesus' life, he didn't live his life that way either. So there's a very nuanced perspective in the Bible of what a neighbor looks like. What is a neighborly relationship? Okay? And we should love our neighbors. Who are our neighbors? Anyone we find to be in need. Those people are our neighbors. And not everyone you find out in the world is in need or conceives of themselves as in need. Cal Magic, the poor and the widows will always be with us. They are our focus. Amen. Amen. Great question. I hope that answered. Zimmy says, great answer. Thank you. Yes, my pleasure. And I hope that helps to clarify for sure, because it's a fantastic question. We often get mixed up with those ideas.